Hey guys, Tarke and a cat, and this time we're going to be looking at the Legion class preview series Priest. Now again, apologies, my light isn't working at the moment, so just deal with it. So this is a bit of a first impressions for me, so excuse any missteps and I will give my own thoughts at the end, but let's just get started. So, welcome to our World of Warcraft Legion class preview series. Good start. In this entry we'll be exploring the Priest. To find out what's in store for a different class, check out the overview. We continue our early look at class and specialization design with the Priest. In these blogs we'll be exploring class identity, discussing Legion's new design and presenting core abilities for each specialization, laying out the foundation upon which talents and artifacts will build further. With that in mind, let's delve into what it means to be a priest in World of Warcraft. Priests have a strong identity as spiritual practitioners who harness divine powers to inspire and protect allies, heal the injured and cure the allied. But while this clearly holds true for holy priests, these ideas are less fundamental for discipline priests, and the ideals and beliefs of shadow priests are antithetical to those of holy priests. Despite these differences, priests of any spec share one key thing in common: unwavering faith in something from which they draw great power. What delineates specializations is the source of that power. In Legion, we're going to explore that dichotomy in greater depth than ever through the gameplay for each specialization. Holy. After spending much of their lives in temples studying ancient doctrine, preaching their tenets of their faith, and pledging their full devotion to the divine powers they follow, the most adept priests leave their houses of worship to serve on the battlefield as shepherd to flock. There they use their holy powers to bless allies and mend wounds, and while most stay behind the front lines to aid their comrades, these holy champions are also capable of smiting foes and carrying out sacred justice. They're also morally opposed to the use of shadow and void magic. Rather, they are exemplars of the incredible grace and power of the divine and the light, and even death cannot fully stop their healing capabilities. Nice. Gameplay. Given the innate purity of the spec, we want to ensure that holy priests continue to have a large repertoire of compelling healing spells. The chakra system was cumbersome. I quite liked it, to be honest, requiring additional setup to optimally use most spells and restricting how much you could fluidly shift between healing methods. We've removed it in favour of a more dynamic playstyle focused around holy words. New holy word spells are designed to feel absolutely miraculous, having huge effects balanced with long base cooldowns. The new passive effect of serendipity allows these long base cooldowns to be reduced, letting you use them more frequently. Finally, in keeping with the resolute beliefs of the Holy Priest, they can make no use of shadow spells. Smite, Holy Fire, and Holy Word Chastise are the instruments used by Holy Priests to inflict damage upon their enemies. Pretty cool. It implies that Discipline Priests may lose Smite and Holy Fire, potentially, and get their own reworded ones. Here's a basic look at the core combat healing abilities for Holy Priests. Heal. A 2% mana, 40-yard range, 2.5 second cast, a slow but efficient spell that heals an ally for a moderate amount. Flash Heal, a 3.5% mana, 40-yard range, 1.5 second cast, a fast but expensive spell that heals an ally for a moderate amount. Holy Word Serenity, 4% mana, 40-yard range, instant, 1 minute cooldown. Perform a miracle, healing an ally for an absolutely massive amount. Prayer of Healing, 8.5% mana, 40-yard range, 2.5 second cast. A powerful prayer that heals up to 5 injured allies within 15 yards of the target for a strong amount. Okay, so hopefully they've finally removed the party aspect of that, because that was quite frustrating. Prayer of Mending, 2% mana, 40-yard range, 1.5 second cast, 10 second cooldown. Places a spell on a party or raid member that heals them for a moderate amount the next time they take damage. When the heal occurs, Prayer of Mending jumps to another party or raid member within 20 yards. Jumps up to 5 times and lasts 30 seconds after each jump. Pretty standard. Holy Word Sanctify. 5% mana, 40-yard range, instant 1 minute cooldown. Release miraculous light into a target location, healing up to 6 allies within 10 yards for a huge amount. 6 seems a bit of an odd number, but okay. Renew. 2.5% mana, 40-yard range, instant. Fill the target with faith in the light, healing them instantly for a minor amount and then a large amount over 15 seconds. Serendipity, passive. When you cast Flash Heal or Heal, the cooldown of Holy Word Serenity is reduced by 6 seconds. Okay, I quite like that. When you cast Prayer of Healing or Prayer of Mending, the cooldown of Holy Word Sanctuary is reduced by 6 seconds. When you cast Smite or Holy Fire, the cooldown of Holy Word Chastise is reduced by 6 seconds. Okay, so that's quite cool. Basically, what they've done is they've said that if you're single target healing a lot, that's probably what you need more of, so you'll reduce your single target stuff. If you're AoE healing a lot, you'll reduce the cooldown of your AoE healing, and if you're doing lots of deeps, then your deep stuff. I actually think that's a good alternative to the mantra model. I quite liked the old system with chakras and all of that stuff, but, you know, it's something quite interesting. And Mastery, Echo of Light. Oh, incidentally, before I continue, that probably makes haste very good, if you can afford the mana cost, but anyway. Echo of Light. Your direct healing spells heal for additional 25%, with Mastery from typical gear over 6 seconds. Okay, so you're going to be getting quite a lot of hot effects as a Holy Priest. So they're really still pushing this output style healing, which is basically what Holy Priest is, just big output healing. Additionally, to give you an idea of how some talents may build upon this, here's an example of one of their holy specific talents, Apotheosis. Instant 3-minute cooldown. Enter a pure holy form for 30 seconds, increasing the effects of Serendipity by 200%. Okay, I can imagine that has a very cool visual alongside it. That is GG. Well played. Shadow. Right, we're getting tentacles, guys. Confirmed. The light in which many priests bathe is brilliant and evanescent, granting them immense divine power. But the brightest light casts the darkest shadow, and from within this blackness a rival power dwells. Shadow priests fully embrace this opposing polarity, their faith equally resolute as their holy counterparts, but focused on shadowy magics and mental manipulation. Like all priests, they dedicate much of their lives to worship, but they derive their power from the void, straying dangerously close to the domain of the old gods. To truly understand such ancient, corruptive influence is to be driven mad. This is the state in which these dark priests thrive, embracing insanity and feeding off the minds of their opponents to reach terrifying new limits. I love the new approach they've taken for Shadow Priests, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how their skills work. So, gameplay. We've long alluded to the old god influence of Shadow Priests and their spells and abilities, and we're making that more distinct in Legion. A new resource, Insanity, provides a better fit for Shadow, having more granularity in gameplay that emphasizes the immense but fleeting power the Void offers. Mind Blast, Shadow Word Pain, and Vampiric Touch will build Insanity. Reaching maximum insanity will transform Shadow form into Void form, giving the Shadow Priest access to stronger Void magic, but is unable to be maintained indefinitely. This should make for interesting gameplay as Shadow Priests try to maintain the height of their insanity as long as possible to prey on the minds of their enemies. While not under the effects of insanity, Shadow Priests continue to rely heavily on abilities that inflict sustained damage over time. Finally, having turned away from the light even, Shadow Priest eschews such spells as Heal, Flash Heal, and Prayer of Mending. Powered Shield and Shadow Mend are their primary healing tools. Okay, so that's cool. So they're still keeping Powered Shield, and they're getting Shadow Meld, which I'm assuming is just like a purpley heal. Pretty cool. Void Form, passive. When you reach 100 Insanity, you enter Void Form, transforming your Mind spells into Void spells and increasing your Shadow damage by 30%. While in Void Form, you gain 2% haste every 1 second. This haste will also persist for 20 seconds after Void Form ends. Wow. Void Form causes your insanity to constantly drain faster and faster until completely drained and Void Form ends. Sounds pretty cool. One thing to note, as they mentioned earlier, we will be gaining Void power through Mind Blast, Shadow Word Pain, and Vampiric Touch is how you'll be gaining your insanity. So keep that in mind. Mind Flay. 40-yard range channeled, assault the target's mind with shadowy energy, causing minor shadow damage over 3 seconds and slowing their movement speed by 50%, while in Void Form transforms into Void Flay, which extends Shadow Word Pain by 3 seconds. Okay. I'm assuming we will be losing the dotless style of play, with that in mind. Mind Blast, 40-yard range, 1.5 second cast and 9 second cooldown. Blast the target's mind for strong shadow energy, generates 15 insanity, while in Void Form transform into Void Blast, which has a 4.5 second cooldown and also extends Vampiric Touch by 3 seconds. Yeah, so it seems dot extension is very much key to Void Form. Vampiric Touch, 40-yard range, 1.5-second cast. A touch of darkness that causes huge shadow damage over 24 seconds, and heals the priest for each point of damage dealt. If Vampiric Touch is dispelled, the dispeller flees in horror for 3 seconds. Each time Vampiric Touch deals damage, it generates 3 insanity. Shadow Word Pain, 40-yard range, instant. A word of darkness that causes minor shadow damage instantly, an additional huge amount of damage over 18 seconds. Each time Shadow Word Pain deals damage, it generates 3 insanity, and has a 10% chance to reset the cooldown of Mind Blast. So that's now baked into the spec. I quite like that. Mastery, Madness. Increase the damage and insanity generation of your Mind Blast, Shadow Word Pain, Vampiric Touch, and Shadow Word Death by 20% with Mastery from typical gear. So those are kind of like the numbers you're expected to have, basically. Additionally, to give you an idea of how some talents may build upon this, here's an example of one of their shadow-specific talents, Oblivion. Instant 2-minute cooldown. Let the power of the void flow through you, instantly generating 100 insanity. So this basically gives you major burst on the pull, or if you're a PvP, just demand burst, which is something that Shadow Priests have needed for a while. Now, one thing I will cover, just briefly before we go into Discipline, is there's going to be a very high skill ceiling to correctly transforming into your void form. And I imagine this will have a lot of gameplay around purposely not casting insanity generating abilities just before burn phases. So, for example, imagine Gorefiend and you have the feasts. Now, you want your big void phase to happen during the feast, not before. So I imagine what you do is you get up to about 80, say, probably 80 because your dots keep generating insanity. So you get to about 80 insanity, then you just hard cast Mind Flay. Then when the burn phase starts, you transform, and that's when you do the crazy damage. So that will be quite interesting, and you'll see quite a big difference, I imagine, between skilled and average Shadow Priest play as well. Big difference. But yeah, it also does look like you will be losing the dotless style of play, so. Discipline. Some priests pride themselves on pragmatism. They understand that light casts a shadow, that darkness is defined by light, and that true discipline stems from one's ability to balance these opposing powers, in services of a greater cause. So hopefully we'll be using both shadow and holy spells. While these priests possess many holy virtues to aid their allies, they also dabble in the dark arts to debilitate their enemies, always exercising immense discipline, see what you did there, to keep themselves away from the brink of insanity. Many would say the ends justify the means. Scriptures both virtuous and vile should be studied and understood to protect the congregation. I really like the way they've approached this, and we know they will be a combined healing DPS spec, so it makes sense to take the core values of both. Gameplay. The power of absorption mechanics has created a gameplay issue for healers that we're looking to address in Legion. Discipline priests have been so effective in their role of preventing damage that it has sometimes left other healers yearning for an opportune time to throw out a clutch heal. To alleviate that issue, we're tempering Discipline's emphasis on shields in lieu of a re-imaged atonement mechanic. Discipline priests are now more clearly defined by their use of both holy and shadow magic, and that extends to how they function in combat. Sacrificing a portion of healing ability and having reduced focus on absorption spells, they gain a significant apparently, contribution in damage. Still feeling a healer role in group content, they aim to strike a balance between healing allies and damaging enemies in a unique gameplay style. Discipline priests have strong cooldowns with Power Word Barrier and Pain Suppression, along with Rapture, a new cooldown that temporarily removes the cooldown of Power Word Shield. Wow. Will that also remove Weakened Soul debuff? I have to imagine so. Here's a basic look at the core defensive and offensive combat abilities for Discipline Priests. Atonement, passive. Plea, Power Word Shield, and Shadow Mend, so they're keeping Shadow Mend from Shadow Priests, also apply Atonement to your target for 15 seconds. When you deal spell damage, you instantly heal all targets affected by Atonement for 50% of the damage done. All targets affected by Atonement, okay. Development comment. Healing is not split between atonements. The more allies you have atonement on, the more total healing that damage spell will cause. So basically you want atonement on all of your allies, you spam DPS, you heal everyone. So that will kind of make them raid healers and DPSers, rather than just like, I absorb the tanks. So I guess they absorb the tanks and then raid heal through their DPS. That sounds pretty cool. Mastery. Absolution. Increase the healing transformed through atonement by 28% with mastery from typical gear. Defensive. Plea. 1.2% mana, 40-yard range, instant. A quick, efficient plea to heal an ally for a minor amount. I really love the idea of like a desperate plea. That's very cool. Shadow Mend. 3% mana, 40-yard range, 1.5-second cast. Wrap an ally in shadows, which heals them for a large amount but at a price. The ally will take minor damage every 1 second until they've taken half the amount of total damage from all sources or leave combat. That's really cool, and this is also the heal that Shadow Priest will have. I wonder what would happen if you like spam heal someone with Shadow Mend. Will the dot get larger and larger? If so, that would be pretty cool. Power Word Shield. 3.5% mana, 40-yard range, instant 6-second cooldown. Shield an ally, absorbing a large amount of damage, lasts 15 seconds. While the shield holds, spellcasting will not be delayed by damage. I think what they might do is they might enforce that 6-second cooldown and then remove the debuff so that you could chain it back to back. I can only imagine, since it's not mentioned at all in the tooltip. Power Word Radiance. 7% mana, 40-yard range, 2.5-second cast. A burst of light heals a friendly target and their 5 nearest allies for a moderate amount, and implies atonement for 50% of its normal duration. Okay, so it's quite a good way to burst heal a single guy, do some raid healing, and reapply your atonement. So that's good. Offense. Okay, so they are keeping Smite, but they are losing Holy Fire. So, 0.75% mana, 40-yard range, 1.5-second cast, smite an enemy for moderate holy damage. Big whoop. Mind Blast. 3% mana, 40-yard range, 1.5-second cast, blast the target's mind for strong shadow damage. Penance. 2.5% mana, 40-yard range, channeled, 9-second cooldown, launches a volley of holy light at the target, causing holy damage over 2 seconds. Channelable while moving. So they've removed the healing aspect of Penance and they've made it a pure DPS move. Quite a big fan of this, and also note that Mind Blast for this one doesn't have a cooldown, so you won't be struggling to keep Penance up, Mind Blast up, and like some desperate heals when you need them. You'll basically be doing Penance on cooldown, spamming Mind Blast, and spamming Smite. And the difference between Smite and Mind Blast is Mind Blast costs a lot more mana, but does a lot more damage. I'm not sure if we might run into an issue where towards the end of the expansion mana is less of an issue, where you just completely ignore Smite and only cast Mind Blast. We don't know. Maybe there will be a balance of you like build Insanity, then have to drop it through your holy spells. We'll see later. Revelation. Passive. Your Smite and Mind Blast casts have a 30% chance to reset the cooldown on Penance. That's going to be pretty cool. So, yeah, no, that's cool. Shadow Word Pain. 2% mana, 40-yard range, instant. A Word of Darkness that causes minor shadow damage instantly and an additional huge amount of shadow damage over 18 seconds. So priests are going to be amazing on ad fights because they will dot everything. All of those dots will chain heal everything. Yeah, that's really, really good. Additionally, to give you an idea of how some talents may build upon this, here's an example of one of the discipline-specific talents passive. Your non-atonement healing and absorption increases, your non-atonement healing absorption by 30% of targets with atonement. Now, they haven't said anything, but I would imagine that they will work similar to Balanced Druids, and there will be times where you want to be casting your shadow spells and your holy spells. Otherwise, as I said earlier, you might run into issues where mana is or isn't an issue, and you're just casting one spell rather than both Smite and Mind Blast. But overall, I really like what they're doing with this. This might be pretty ridiculous in PvP, and it's nice to see another healer alongside the Crane Stance Mistweavers doing pretty good damage. Oh, and DPS guys, rip your trinkets, because these guys are going to want them. So, that's everything. Overall, I've got to say, I'm pretty excited about all 3 specs. Shadow sounds really cool. Discipline sounds amazingly cool. Hopefully, Holy gains enough utility through its new hot over time mechanics and just big output that it becomes a contender again. So it's not like you have to have a Holy Paladin and a Disc Priest and a Resto Chamois and then you have like one random slot. Hopefully it'd be more like you choose, do you want a Holy Paladin or a Holy Priest? You know, we can hope. But anyway, I'm Tarke, thanks for watching, and I'll upload the Mage Spotlight as soon as it becomes available. Bye-bye.